I'd like to call the Gurnee Village Board Committee of the Whole for April 23rd, 2018 to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs. Ross.
Here.
Garner. Balmas.
Present.
Hood.
Here.
Thorstensen.
Here.
4 present, 2 absent.
All right, and we had a request to do the Pledge of Allegiance at our Committee of the Whole meetings. So we will do that. Do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reminds us of our duty. All right. All right. First, we're going to talk about and review the bid results for the village-wide electrical aggregation program. I believe Jack has a presentation for us.
Yeah, Jack's going to run it through us. We had our bid today, and he's going to go through a little history and the bid results and let us know where we're headed.
All right. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Mayor and the board. So just a brief reminder of the program. Started in 2012 with a referendum. Residents supported it overwhelmingly. It was an opt-out program, meaning residents have the opportunity to be out only if they opt out. Over time, we signed multiple one-year contracts. The price started very low and kind of progressively has gone higher as pricing's gone higher for the contract. And then the last contract was with MC Squared for 6.89 cents a kilowatt hour. It was a one-year deal. And this graph really shows kind of where it's gone. So a lot of the savings was the initial periods of the contract, but it's lately we've gained more savings. The orange line represents the ComEd rate. The blue line is Gurnee's rate. And on average, through our program, the average household saved $500 and $4 million village-wide. So it's been a good program. So since our last meeting, ComEd has released their new pricing schedule. Starting in the summer, it'll be 7.32 cents per kilowatt hour used, and it'll go up in the non-summer months, which here in our area is mostly year, for 7.89 cents per kilowatt hour. And then the annualized rate, which is the average rate for the year, is 7.73 cents per kilowatt hour. So today we got our bid results. We had 5 responses, and since it's a commodity, it's only good for 24 hours. MC Squared, as a reminder, is the incumbent, and ComEd's rate was 7.73 cents when you average it out for the year. So you guys have the bids in front of you as well, but the blue highlights which was the lowest bidder. We asked them to do a 12-month, 24-month, and 36-month. And the general trend is that prices are going to go down essentially every year. So the longer contract we lock in, the lower the prices are for all 3 years. So whatever the price shows would be the price for every year. What that indicates is that they're optimistic about the markets and prices will continue to go down. It's not going to be the spikes we saw in the past. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk real quick through all 3 of the contracts. So MC Squared, the incumbent, was the 12-month winner. Dynergy was the 24-month, and they were also 36-month. So the difference is the rates is 7.38, 7.29, 7.2. And on average, for the first program, if we did it for 1 year, your household would save $30 throughout the year. So not huge savings. We're only talking a couple % off your bill. But there's no cost to residents. There's no penalty for it. And it's guaranteed rate savings. So the other thing is we don't know what ComEd's rates are going to be next year or the year after. So real quick pros and cons. 12-month contract, basically 100% guaranteed to save money. This is a program, we do it, you're going to save $30. If you use a lot of electricity, you'll save $60. It's a no-brainer basically for you. Same vendor, so no confusion. We're not going to have multiple switches. People are going to know MC Squared. We'll get the name out there more and more. That is our vendor. And they're based out of Chicago. They have a small office, good customer support. You call them, you get someone on the phone. The cons is for a brief period, so this thing, and part of where we had a little harder of a time deciding with this, it will be underwater for the first couple months of the thing. So our rate would be higher than ComEd's rate. Until then, their winter months would go up so much that on average, the difference is 1%. So we're talking maybe the first couple months, your bill would be $1 higher than for the whole period if ComEd's rate, if you had been with ComEd. But then the second half of the year is where the savings would kick in. So that is something to consider. and it's, there's less savings for the longer time. And then also for our 2019, rates could go up again, and we missed out on a chance to lock in a low rate. Dynergy, so there was a little bit less. So the first year would be guaranteed low rate. Second year, there's a very good chance they think that rates they wouldn't drop very much. But here's the catch. So in the past, we used to be able to, if their rate if ComEd's rate was lower than the vendor's rate, we could automatically take the lower rate. That is no longer in the contracts. So essentially, our residents would be stuck in this contract for the 2 years. They could get out of it, but they have to opt out themselves. So when we could put out messaging telling everybody to opt out of it, but that's a kind of scary scenario in some regards. So we'd have to tell them to do so. So that's something that they could do. And then finally, kind of the other thing is, so just recently, Dynergy was purchased from another company, Vistra Energy. I just found this out in my research today. They're just going through a transition, so there's a good chance that by the time we put out all the PR telling people it's Dynergy, it could be Vistra. So their website was just changing today, and they just announced that there are some staff changes. So the 36-month contract, same thing, more savings, but it's an even higher risk, higher reward. So my staff recommendation, and if the board agrees, is that we do the 1 year with MC squared. It's going to guarantee savings for the residents, for sure. There's zero chance of it not. Keeps it a 1 year program, so next year we can do it again. It does put more work on our end that we have to do this again next year, but we think that there'll be less confusion with switching the vendors. Local customer service, and then also the corporate stability, that we know that this company right now isn't going through what another one is. So, and this shows similar to the previous graph, but this will be this year's savings too. So if you can see, the gap will widen again. This will be a good year for the contract. So, and then next year we can go out and bid again.
How much staff time do you put into this on just rough estimate on an annual basis?
Right away, a bit, just when the letter goes out. So there's the letter, essentially they are required to send a letter saying that, they're part of the program. I mean, everyone's got the letter. So when we switch vendors, 2 letters go out. One that you're being transferred and it's from ComEd, and another one that comes with our letterhead on it. So if we stay with MC squared, there'll only be 1 letter. So there's that, but if either way, it's not too bad at the beginning. I do get calls throughout the year, from residents, mainly senior citizens, and it's one of the things, I'm personally a big fan of electric aggregation because I have a lot of sad stories from people I talk to of them trying to get suckered into deals twice what ComEd's rate is, and what they say is, no thank you, I'm with the village. So for me, I think it's a great program, but
so from that perspective, the program still has value because it's protecting our residents from the multitude of, we get the phone calls and the letters at home too. Okay.
I mean, a lot of the problem is the ComEd boilerplate language that they send out that basically says you need to do nothing if you want to continue in the village's program isn't very clear. And that's what leads to confusion, so then they call Jack about that. Okay.
So it doesn't nearly go to the level of waste management.
No, it's not leaf collection or trick-or-treat hours.
Okay. Karen?
Doing well if those are our 3 problems.
I just want to make sure I understand the first few month increase. Is that because, did I hear ComEd's rate right now is lower than 7.38?
So ComEd's currently, right now, is 7.19 cents. So our rate's 6.89 currently. So our rate's lower than ComEd's. But what happens is they set their price schedule in May of every year. And so they set for what it's going to be in June. So we'll still be, when they'll go up to 7.32, we'll still be at 6.89 for the month of June. Come July, that's when our rate would go up to 7.38. Theirs would be 7.32. So which is a fraction of a penny. So it's a very small percentage. It's like 0.8% difference. So on your bill, it would increase your bill slightly. So that is unfortunate that it would be, but it's very minuscule. And I mean, actually, the last graph shows a pretty good visual representation of it, where it's right here, it's underwater for a second.
So ComEd splits their pricing between peak and non-peak. So ours will be just a fraction higher because they do the lower pricing for 3 months, but then the other 9 months will be better pricing.
Right. What you really need to focus on is the annualized rate. You'd have to be a pretty savvy resident that watches the ComEd rate, which is almost impossible to find on their website, to find that the village's program is higher for that first couple of months before ComEd enters into that winter rate. So when you look at it over the 11-month period, how long our 11 or 10 months, how long our program is, we beat the ComEd rate.
I guess I was just wondering, is this a complicated Q&A that you're going to have to or tell again and again?
Well, this is the 5th year of the program?
Yeah, it's in 2012, so yeah,
wow,
we've had multiple
6.
renewals.
So, I mean, we've been in the program for 6 years.
But this little,
Well,
We would
there's always
focus-
been staggered pricing out with ComEd. This is the first time I remember where we're even a fraction higher.
We'd focus on the annualized rate because that's easier for people to understand.
Yeah, so we'll compare the 773, which is honest, with the 738. So it will be considerably lower. But it is one of the things that we considered. I mean, this wasn't an easy recommendation for me. Today, I was kind of going back and forth, deciding which one to do, and it's only good for 24 hours.
And
Either
we're
one would be
talking
fine.
tenths of a cent. I mean, you see the 738 and the 773, it's 4/10 of a cent. I mean, it's not, it looks bigger than it really is.
Yeah, and the big thing too is next year, they are almost positive the rates will go down. It's a question of how much. Most likely they won't drop significantly, but if we were at a point where ComEd dropped to below 7 cents and we had a rate that was significantly higher, it would be difficult to tell residents to get out of it. And from a PR standpoint, it wouldn't be great.
We wouldn't get credit for the 5 years that we saved them $500. We'd be the dummies that entered into a program that's costing them more money.
understood.
Speak for
We're
yourself.
so jaded. We're so jaded.
That's what it would be. And I mean,
It wasn't
and then
for
it would
social
be
media.
tough too. And then if we wanted to move forward again with aggregation, getting that confidence back from the public would be an uphill battle that we'd have to deal with too. So.
Anybody have any
Yeah.
concerns with Jack's recommendation to do a 1 year?
Oh, good choice, Jack.
It's fine.
Fine.
Okay. We'll get
All
that
right.
signed tomorrow.
Good
and
choice.
Then we'll have May 7th. The contract will be back before the village board for the final approval, but we'll sign it tomorrow since we've got 24 hours. Okay. Yeah, I don't, but.
All right, so now we have a review of the proposal to relocate the Gurnee Mills Police Substation to an inline storefront location. I've talked to most of you at some point in the last year or so, I think, about our desire, based on the chief's recommendation and that. So Deputy Chief Smith, Brian's going to walk us through the whole proposal, and we also have Randy here and Dave Henderson here. So
Thank you,
Brian's
Mayor.
all yours.
Patrick Board. We're here to talk about the substation proposal. As the mayor mentioned, we're going to start by going through a history of the substation. Then we're going to talk about the proposed facility, discuss our visitor-oriented policing team, talk about some of the benefits and uses that we see for the proposed facility. We'll go through some staffing questions, talking about the public gathering space that we may have. We'll go into the difference between the public and the secure spaces. Brian Gosnell will help us with Dave Henderson will help us with the build-out costs and the continuing cost. And then I'll finish up with the strategic plan and how we see this fitting into that plan. And then at the end, we'll do some questions. And as the mayor mentioned, the team that's worked on this is here tonight and available to answer some questions. We have had a substation out of Gurnee Mills since it opened in 1991. It is currently attached to the mall corporate offices that are out there, so kind of behind the scenes. To use Randy's analogy, it's kind of back in the locker room area and not up on the playing field. So the blue X there is the substation, and the yellow line that you see is the retail corridor. To get to our substation from the retail corridor, again, you have to go down a number of hallways to find us. This is some pictures. On the top left is the front entrance from the retail corridor. Again, a couple of hallways from the retail corridor, and then you'll stumble across our door. The bottom right is a picture of the rear entrance to the substation. That is the entrance the officers use. It comes from the back parking lot, and the officers have to go up a set of stairs to get into the hallway, and then they go down through another set of stairs to get into the substation. Again, this is something that we have to take into consideration each time we're escorting a handcuffed prisoner. Pictures of the actual substation. Again, a couple of things I want you to notice is it's a shared location right now. The office space is also the booking room for the officers that are stationed out there. So the booking of an offender that's in custody is taking place right next to officers that are there working at their workstations. Again, if you look at the top left picture in the back corner, it's a little bit hard to see, but that is the fingerprint machine. Again, officers will be fingerprinting offenders right next to the different officer's work desk. On the top right, you'll notice that you see one bathroom that's in the picture there. There's another bathroom that's on the bottom left that's directly across from it. That is a shared bathroom with the officers and Gurnee Mills security staff. And as you can see, there's some evidence lockers and gun lockers that are in the bathroom. To make the best use of the space that we have available. That's the way that it's set up. Down on the bottom right is the locker room. This is a shared locker room that the mall has allowed us to have access to. It's their security locker room, so we do share it with the mall security staff. The proposed location, again, to take an analogy from Randy, is at the 50-yard line. We're on the playing field at the 50-yard line, right off the retail corridor. You can see that from the red X that's on the overhead. Again, the yellow line is the retail corridor. It's smack dab in the middle of the mall. It really doesn't get any more middle than this location that they are offering to us. Just to kind of give you a perspective, for those of you that are familiar with the mall, it's directly across from the children's play area. So if you are familiar with that really wide area, right around Bed Bath & Beyond, the children's play area is there, and the mall is, proposed location is directly across from it. This is the proposed facility as a drawing that was rendered by Gurnee Mills. And then the bottom drawing are drawings that were put together by staff as we worked on this to try and come up with the best plan. One of the things would like you to keep in mind is the previous substation, or the current substation, if you will, is currently 800 square feet. The proposed location here is 1,642 square feet. Again, so a little bit more than double the size of the current location. One of the very unique things about this proposal is we will have a community area in the front. It's notated by reception area here on the slide. Everything behind the red line that you see is the secure substation for the officers. So that includes their office spaces where they will be doing their work. Again, the interview rooms, one of the things that you notice on the interview rooms is you can enter from both sides. That allows somebody to walk in and make a walk-in report with an officer. And it also allows the officers to lock the doors and bring somebody in through the booking side for an offender that they have in custody, that they can then interview them in an interview room in a secure location. It is something that we don't have available to us right now in the substation. A couple of the other things that you're going to notice is the secure storage there. One of the unique things about the mall and the mall officers, they oftentimes come in contact with large amounts of evidence, retail evidence, merchandise. And so having a location that the officers can secure it and lock it up until they are finished processing the offender and the evidence is extremely beneficial. There is also a bathroom that's in the booking room here. Again, note that the booking room is separate from the officer's work area. That's important as officers will be booking somebody in a secure, locked location in an area that is designed to be used for that. So there'll be benches there that the offenders will be handcuffed to. The room has been designed so that an officer will not find themselves with their back turned to the offender while they're working, which is something we don't currently have in the substation. As you go further back, you'll notice the break room. There is a small locker room in the back and a private employee bathroom in the back for the employees that are working there. One of the things I just want to remind you, this will be a workstation, a true substation for the visitor-oriented policing team. Our visitor-oriented policing team is a very proactive police presence in the commercial and recreational areas in the community. They're responsible for the mall, Six Flags, the hotels, the retail areas. They're currently made up of 8 officers and a supervisor. There's a couple of officers here now, and their supervisor, Sergeant O'Brien, is here. They report through the investigations commander, which is Commander Gonzalez. He's also here. So that's their year-round staffing. We're looking to increase that number by 1 to 9 with the current upcoming budget. During the summer, that team becomes a team of 12 officers and 2 supervisors. So the SROs move from their school resource position into the visitor-oriented policing team. They take up assignments at Six Flags Great America. The team becomes 12 officers and 2 sergeants that are working with that team. So this will be their substation. They will work out of this area. And again, they'll be much more visible at the mall, right on the retail corridor for everybody to see. Some proposed uses and staffing, again, talking about the police-only working area, that's where their officers will be. And it's important to distinguish between that and the public space that would be at the front. The public space that we would have at the front is a community engagement area. It's an area that we see staffing with an officer at times, but also with community service officers, both full-time and part-time. We see a program for the explorers to be involved out there, where they are shadowing our officers, as well as helping in the substation there, answering questions in the front. There will also be a time for some civilian staffing to spend out there with our education specialist, Tammy Martin, and Tom Agos, our crime prevention officer. One of the things that we really see this space being used for is community events and regular presentations to the community and to the mall. There's a number of things that we can provide, anything from credit card fraud to home safety, vehicle safety, burglar prevention. So we see that front community engagement area as a location for our staff to interact with mall patrons, and also to provide some forms of educational programs, as well as giving the explorers and community service officers an opportunity to be out there and take reports if necessary. One of the things I'd like to point out here is the width of the central court area that is directly in front of the substation. Again, that yellow line is the retail area. The red cross there is the proposed station for the new substation, and the width directly in front of it. It's a fairly wide area that will allow us to host events. We've talked about, and there's been discussions about having a squad car out there on occasion, perhaps having the ATV there on occasion, setting up chairs and making it a presentation area on a more regular basis, so that we're providing monthly community engagement talks where we interact and provide safety conversations, ways that the community can protect themselves. Again, the sky's the limit here. Credit mortgage fraud, skimmers, ID theft. There's a number of presentations that our officers do currently in the community, going to Neighborhood Watch, going to some of the residential areas, and they give presentations. We see this as an area that we could do that here at the mall. Dave Henderson is going to talk us through the build-out costs and give you a far more detailed explanation of those than I would ever be able to.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. Want to come over here so I can see what I'm talking about a little bit. Yeah, we put this budget together working with the Mills contractor initially. They're a design build firm. They're doing all the work out there. They're using a lot of local contractors. So we partnered with them, and that's the column on the right, the Affinity Company's proposal. And it's really a hybrid proposal because they had limited information starting on this, and they did their very best working with us to get the types of things that we need in the space. But the more we developed the plan and the program, the more we realized needed to go into it. So what I have done is I have taken their proposal and filled in areas that they were unaware of when they put it together, so that between the two columns, my pricing information on the left compared to theirs, it was more apples to apples, and the same scope of services was being provided. I just want to point out there's a few large differences, and I'm sure everybody was curious what's going on there. The initial line, the general conditions, that'll be the project supervision, cleanup, safety, things like that. And I think that either firm, or any firm that's involved could, handle it for that amount of money. They had a line for general requirements, which seemed redundant after I dug into it with their proposal and their project manager. Some of the activities in there are picked up in other lines, so I deleted that cost, and I don't think it's going to be a deletion of any quality or service on the job. The demolition, there's a slight difference there. I had the opportunity to take Kraus Electric, who's doing a lot of the work for the mall on the refurbishment, the rehab, and I took Ultra Plumbing from Gurnee. I took Aircon out there, and we walked the space and kind of really dug into it. They were very nice, the people in the store to let us go through there. And we picked up a few things, like you do when you go through it more. So that's all included in there. The millwork is a proposal that picks up the reception area, the lockers, picks up the kitchenette area, and all the furniture for the officers' workspace. And then the doors and frames, that's taking into account the quality and the duty rating of the materials that we need for a police substation. And we partnered with Stauber Hardware up off of Sunset Avenue to get all that put together. And then, the other lines are pretty self-explanatory, the carpentry, the doors, the flooring. One notable exception is on the drywall. Let's see, that would be about 1/3 of the way down, framing and drywall. I put together a price that's about, it's a little, right about twice what they had in there. And that was because the more we got into this, the more sensitive we became to the notion that this could be a loud space on occasion. And we should really, the space wasn't designed for that type of a rating, sound transmission coefficient rating. So I looked up and came up with some different designs that will really help insulate all the neighbors from any noise that may occur from time to time in there, and not just do a general, white box drywall kind of a job that you might do for a retail install. And then we have a signage allowance in there to get a nice, visible sign out towards there. And there's a line for a mall upgrade that's required for the fire alarms and the fire safety system. We got that from Affinity. They were very helpful there. And we put it all together. We did go out and get some proposals on architect engineering fees, and we found that the Black architecture firm who did this building was willing to do it for significantly less than Affinity had estimated it for, so we plugged that number in there. I'm sure they could work with them very well too. And then we added some parking spaces at the bottom because the way this back entrance exits, it's a shared space. There's some loading docks. There's, store traffic in there. And Randy pointed out a green space that they could sacrifice and allow us to pave it, so we would have some parking that's reserved spaces for the officers' squad cars, and it would make getting, people in and out of there much easier. So that's how that got put together.
Thank you, Dave. All right, the next slide is the budget impact slide, and Finance Director Brian Gosnell is going to talk us through that.
All right, thank you. So as using $360,000 as the total project cost, the mills agreed to pay the total upfront and allow the village to spread it over three years, which would be about $120,000 a year. Fiscal year 19, fiscal year 19 impact that we did not budget for. So when we looked at how we could cover these costs, the first thing we wanted to do was minimize the fiscal year 19 impact because we hadn't planned for that. Obviously, in fiscal year 20 and 21, we can plan for that with a little more time frame. So we looked at the use of the police restricted revenue fund. That's a fund that we talk about during the budget preparation. It has about $95,000 fund balance in it right now. It is restricted for use with DUI and drug enforcement activities. So what we could do is use $75,000 of that to offset the purchase of squad cars currently in the capital fund. We would then pay the full $120,000 for the first year out of that capital fund for a net impact of $45,000, which staff is confident we can cover with line item savings in the capital fund. To do all that, what we would need to do is one budget amendment for an expense of $75,000 in the PD restricted revenue fund, where we would charge essentially $75,000 of the expense for squad car purchases in fiscal year 19 to that account.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dave and Brian, both for your help there. As we move towards the end here, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was how this fits into our strategic plan and the initiative for a safe and livable community. While the project was not specifically in mind when this strategic initiative was drafted, it fits squarely within its intent and the police department's mission. We do recognize the importance of consumer spending, sales tax, amusement tax, hotel and motel taxes, and food and beverage tax to the financial sustainability of the village. Therefore, the patrons visiting the village must feel safe and secure as they shop at its many retail outlets. It is important that the village partner with the business community and develop strategies aimed at improving public safety perceptions. Assigning additional police officers to the visitor-oriented policing team will provide a robust police presence in commercial and recreational areas. As I noted earlier, we will be adding one visitor-oriented policing team after May 1st. And again, the substation, we feel, specifically fits into the initiative that was put forth in the strategic plan. The proposal for the new substation is intended to advance the shared vision of a more visible presence for the police department at Gurnee Mills and for the community and its visitors. The current conditions at the Gurnee Mills substation warrant updates to be more effective and to entice officers to a desired work assignment. Again, one of the things we're looking at is not just being visible to the mall and to the community and being available to assist them, but giving a location that our west side officers will come to and use as a true substation instead of coming all the way to the east to the current police station. Again, the current substation, as it's designed and used right now, officers find it hard to use because the workstations are right there amongst the work that's being done, booking offenders, etc. The offenders are seated at the desk with the Gurnee Mills officer who's working. Therefore, the district officers, they're not going to stop there and make phone calls. They're not going to stop there and do investigative work and follow up on their cases. And so one of the things we see is this being a location that the officers will visit on a regular basis. Not just the visitor-oriented policing team, but also the district officers that are out there using the facility. All of the stakeholders have expressed initial support for this project. With all the building momentum for this project, we've come to the point where communicating the cost of the project prior to going any further down the road has become necessary. It is my intent tonight to communicate the plans for the facility, our goals for maximizing its use and the associated costs, and to ask for your support going forward. I am here with the team that has brought us this far to answer any questions that you may have.
Excellent job, Brian.
Thank you.
very much. Good business case. And I will just say, I can't stress how important the visitor-oriented policing unit is to the village. They have made a huge difference. Thank you. The work is very important. And they've been in terrible working conditions and done a yeoman's job. I feel bad listening to that, that we haven't been able to do something sooner. But this is a partnership with the mills. We know how valuable the visibility will be. It has sadly been a perception that we don't have police out there, and we have always had police at Gurnee Mills. They just were in the back. So this raises that awareness, gives them opportunity for community engagement, safer, much better working conditions. Their safety is very important to us. The Mills has given us incredibly beautiful, nice terms, because there's an advantage to them too, allowing us to have that inline space that's very valuable to them. But we feel the awareness of the wonderful safety that we have at the Mills is just, that's priceless. So this is a good idea, and I was telling the gentleman that I was in Atlanta, in Buckhead, for 7 days, and of course I have to go shopping. Buckhead is one of the most expensive places in Atlanta, one of the most expensive suburbs. Beautiful Simon Mall, Lenox Square. They had a police substation. Now, it wasn't inline, but it was down one of the hallways. But it certainly gives you, and this was a high-end mall, but it certainly gives you a sense of security, which is very important in this day and age. I mean, things happen everywhere. But our officers, the visitor-oriented police, they need good, safe working conditions to do their important work. So I'm hoping the board will support this. Questions for Brian?
Yeah, one
or
thing I'd
Dave?
add quick before we take questions is the Mills has agreed to abate the rent and cover the utilities for this space. So that's about $100,000 a year value to the village that the Mills would forego to make this thing happen. So, I mean, they are throwing some skin in the game as far as giving up that revenue on their end.
Could we put a TV screen on that back wall of the reception area?
I've already talked about a couple of them, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I was just thinking, for public service, maybe not with sound or anything,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's not there, but just people will stop and maybe learn something about the village and.
We've talked
Yes,
about
yes.
that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's one of the things we've talked about and discussed as a team, is having a video playing, a ticker going on with different information, village information, mall information. And so we do see that space being something that we can advertise ourselves and share with the community. So also an area where somebody can pick up a pamphlet of information related to crime. Depending on the call volume out there at the mall and walk-in reports, in the future, we do see that as a location where we could possibly put a self-reporting kiosk if the volume requires it. And then the civilian staff that's out there can walk somebody through a self-reporting kiosk. So there are a number of things that we see this being important to use for, but having a TV there with videos going is something
You're
that's
ahead
been
of me.
discussed a
That's
number of
good.
times.
It's always good when you guys are ahead of me. Questions? Cheryl?
Just a couple. Are you going to keep the security interior for the mall security, or are they going to join into this one?
Yeah, you're talking about the current location?
Yes, because you said you were sharing it before, and so are they going to stay interior, the mall security, or are they going to?
Yes, ma'am. The Gurnee Mill security will stay put. We do have a shared location with them. It is mall offices that where we're at. So if we move out, it will stay there. And I'm not sure how the mall would use that space in the future, but the Gurnee Mill security team would not move with us.
Okay. And then don't you have like jail cells back there?
One of the things that we've recognized over the years is we've never used that location for any long-term housing. And so having a bench that is somebody can be handcuffed to while we're processing them is much more viable than needing a cell. And then as we need the cell, we transport them to the police station.
Does that not make sense?
Well, it does make sense, but I'm thinking an alcoholic, somebody high on something, just handcuffed to a bench is not, I miss the idea of not having a cell. That would be a little more secure and maybe also soundproof because they tend to be a little more boisterous and...
Sure, and that's why Mr. Henderson talked about the soundproofing of the entire facility. It is something that we're concerned with, being in between two businesses. One of the things that the team is already really good with is recognizing ahead of time intoxication levels and not bringing those people to the substation. So those people get transported to the general police station where we have more room to deal with them. So that is something that we would continue to do.
And you still have to go through a hallway, though, to get to the parking places.
It is a much safer walk. There is a hallway. There's a back hallway that leads to access that comes out right there behind Bed Bath & Beyond. There are no steps. It's a finished lighted sidewalk, and the mall has agreed to allow us some parking there. So while the distance of the actual walk is about the same, there are no steps involved. So currently we have 2 steps that we have to navigate with somebody who's handcuffed. We would not need to do that here, and it's a straight shot. So there aren't any turns involved. We would walk out of the rear of the substation, walk right out the proposed location, walk right out the door, and be right there to the squad.
The community engagement will be priceless. The opportunity to really, for our officers to engage in a positive way with the community and the shoppers and everything is really a lot of value, and I think part of the reason why the Mills was so agreeable. Randy, do you want to add anything? You came all this way. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's what I like the most about, one of the things I like the most about this plan to relocate to the 50-yard line is that ability to interact with the customer face-to-face, one-on-one, and also to utilize the station as a community engagement. So not just police, but you could have firefighter events there. You could have, go through the list of options where we could do community-related events, community-related information, pamphlets about the village and activities, and promote Gurnee days and things like that. So that's another thing that I really love about this. I mean, this is huge for the center and something that most shopping malls don't have. A lot of malls have a substation. As Mayor mentioned, it's in the back hallway, kind of like ours is now. This is unique. It's different. It's right on the 50-yard line near the play area, near an expanded area in the mall, the center court, where we have some soft seating and a carpeted soft seating, which we just put in a couple weeks ago, where we could set up some chairs and do training, as was mentioned, things like that. So just nothing but benefits out of this, and I think the long-term, the perception, helping to change perception. And hey, the police are right there, and you can go up to ask a question, or if you're a kid in the play area, you can go get a sticker from the police officer. So I just see nothing but benefits, and it's doubling the square footage of the space as well, and giving them a safe environment for them to work in. So
yeah, they need a better work environment, especially with the work that they're doing, which is very important.
And the chief and team have been very responsive in making the VOP unit and Gurnee Mills substation a desirable working place. So we get the best of the best when it comes to the Gurnee officers. And we love that. We love being able to provide an environment for them that's desirable for them to come and work out of and do their duties.
Thank you. Karen?
So two of my questions were already answered, thank you. The rent and the backdoor access, so thanks, quite informative. What's the timeline?
Yeah, I mean, the
Jocelyn?
first thing we need to do, right, is work on.
Get the term,
right,
get the
and
lease
Get the agreement
executed.
drawn up, approved by the village board. And then after that, it's, I know there's a tenant in there right now that Brandy will address that, freeing that space up, and then it's lining up contractors and everything else. I don't know. Dave, you have a timeline on how long you think it would take to build this thing out once they got started?
I think once they are issued the building permit, they would be able to get occupancy within 90 days.
We might be able to influence that building permit.
Not a chance.
So 90 days?
I do have some concerns. I know you said you're adding to, but the manning of it, it's one thing to have the space, but keeping it manned is a concern because could be potentially a huge expense. Because if our officers are busy, they're not sitting there, and that leaves me a little concerned.
I think the manning would be through the alumni and the Explorer, not all the time. It would not be manned all the time, right?
Correct, thank you. And just to clarify, we would be looking for some volunteers with the Alumni Association. Again, we talked about the Citizens Police Academy. Coming up with hours that are the busy part of the mall day for that front area when it is fully staffed. The substation itself, like it is now and like it has been, is staffed all the time during mall hours. So there's always a police officer that is assigned to and working at the mall. The visitor-oriented policing team on top of that supplements those officers, adds to them. And so we often have officers that are out walking around on foot patrol or patrolling the parking lots, but the front public area, the community involvement area, would, on occasion, have an officer there to meet and greet and answer some questions, but we would look at the busier times and staffing that with some volunteers or some civilian personnel.
And not all the time.
And not all the time.
So that would be locked then if no one is there, or?
No, we would leave it open. The front area would be open. We're looking at brochures and informational sheets that are there. It's an area that would be viewed by a camera with a set of monitors back in the secure area. So that area itself would be open to the public to come in. There would be different methods involved for getting a police officer if you needed to, ringing a bell for security, picking up a phone for dispatch, things along those lines. So when it's not staffed, it would be open.
And this kind of doesn't have, do we have an officer that patrols the mills 24/7?
During business hours. So
just during business hours, not the evening hours, like from what, 10 to 10? Or?
Sure, we have the district officers.
No security after that.
Okay.
There are the district car that's assigned out there to that area does patrol the mall. The mall has 24-hour security that also patrols their property. The substation, the current substation, and a police officer assigned there is during business hours.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good deal. Everybody agree? All right, let's get a lease done.
Yeah, I would just, would say this first year, with that asset forfeiture fund, that eases the pain a little bit. But years 2 and 3, I mean, the capital improvement fund revenue isn't going to increase by 120,000, so it's going to be some give and take. So money that's spent on this is going to come away from some other project. This makes complete sense. I like the concept. I think we should move forward with it, but I just want everyone to understand that with these will come some sacrifices in other areas.
Remember that. I have to remember that when we ask for different things.
I'll remind you.
I know, he will. But this is important. It's going to be good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I'll circle back around with Jocelyn, and we'll get working on that agreement, get something before the village board as soon as we can, and then move forward.
And it's going to be an exciting summer at the Mills. We have Dick's opening at the end of May. Can I say the furniture one? Okay. The Room Place has taken the TJ Maxx site. That's moving ahead, and they're going to have a nice court area and an outside entrance and everything. Waiting on the radio station. We need to hurry them along a little bit. It's taking longer than we anticipated. So new stuff all the time out there. It looks good. And the renovation's almost done.
Yeah, and just before we leave, I mean, I want to thank the police department for the work they put in. John Peterson's played a huge role in this. Obviously, Dave Henderson and all the assistance and expertise he's provided. And then, of course, Chris has been involved, identified some areas that were overlooked before as far as the IT infrastructure and stuff. That's been helpful so that when we make sure we put this cost estimate together, it was as complete as we could anticipate. So we're not coming back with, oh, here's another $50,000 that we forgot. So we feel pretty good about it. So just thank, that team for all their help. They've been instrumental in getting it to this point, so.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys took the lead on this and the initiative to get it done. And all right, if we have no other business,
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Trustee Balmas, second by Trustee Jacobs. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.